Hey there, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. So a new report has come out that says that cable operators or the cable industry is going to have 60% of the broadband market share still in 5 years from now. That's with all the fiber frenzy that's going on. Be right back to talk about that. Hey, thanks for joining me. Rick Uzzi here with Broadband Deployment News. So you would think with all of the fiber that's being put in the ground now and with all of the money that's coming for future fiber builds, we know that with the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, BEAD, part of the Infrastructure Act, that there's going to be a heavy emphasis on fiber if it's at all possible to do fiber. If it's not something that's going to be really high cost, then that's going to all be fiber. So all that money is coming, and yet still this report says that in 5 years, cable is still going to have the majority of broadband subscribers in the US. They're saying about 60%. So I thought I'd look at that. So this is the story here. So you see Global Data Tips Cable told 60% of US broadband market share by 2027 despite fiber advances. This is from Global Data. So analysts from Global Data forecast cable shares of the US broadband market will slide in the coming years as fiber and fixed wireless access gain ground, but predicted the technology will still account for the vast majority of connections by 2027. Global Data's latest report measures market share by access technology rather than type of operator, which is important because these cable operators could be putting in fiber as well. Cable's total market share, including both residential and business connections, is expected to slide from an estimated 67.7% this year in 2022 to 60% in 2027. That's really not that much of a decline. Meanwhile, fiber's market share is expected to grow from 17.9% to 27.5% over the same period, while fixed wireless access's share will climb from 1.9 to 10.6. So you can see big advances there for both fiber and for fixed wireless. Now with cable, a lot of cable in this country is provided by the big MSOs, and a lot of the big MSOs are doing what they can. They've not really said that they're going to start overbuilding themselves on their DOCSIS plant. So, somebody like Charter, who's getting RDOF money, and if some of these cable operators get additional funds to build out in areas that they're not covering right now, let's say either through RDOF or ARPA or BEAD, then they will probably be doing fiber. So it could be, I could see where these fiber numbers could go even higher, but I don't think they're going to be doing, these big providers, I don't think they're going to be doing a lot of overbuilding on their old plants. So a lot of that plant's going to stay the same, unless they find an area that they don't want to upgrade. But a lot of them are going to be doing DOCSIS 4.0 kinds of technologies to try to get faster speeds. So I think that's going to account for that. Tammy Parker, a principal analyst at the firm, told Fierce the forecast is based on the assumption that existing cable networks will be upgraded to higher speeds with DOCSIS 4.0 and that cable operators will expand into new markets. But now, I hope they're taking into account that when cable operators expand into new markets, they're probably going to do that with fiber. If Comcast, I could be wrong about Comcast, but I think Charter, some of these others, I would hope Comcast would do this, but if they go into a completely greenfield area, I would think they would do it with fiber because, and I think Charter's already doing that. I know Charter's already doing that actually with RDOF funds. So they're already, to do DOCSIS 4.0, you've already got to go fiber really deep. A lot of times like node plus 0, which means you're going fiber almost all the way to the home. Your last mile is basically coax. So there's no reason to do fiber most of the way and not do it all the way. So that's why I'm thinking that maybe the fiber numbers could be increased over this 27.5% that they're looking at, because maybe they're thinking that maybe they're accounting for some cable expansion that's going to remain on DOCSIS, but I don't see that happening. Cable operators are continuing to engage in aggressive build-out plans, she stated. That's true, but I don't think, again, if they're building out in large areas, now maybe if they're edging out their territory, that's different. If they're edging out just a small area, they might say, oh, let's put another CMTS here, because they are doing remote PHY, remote MAC-PHY kind of stuff, so they're edging out that way. But if they're going to do a wholesale big deployment in a new area, or let's say a big adjacent area, I think they are going to be looking at fiber maybe sooner than they think they are. While cable operators will be up against new fiber players flush with private funding and government grants, she noted supply chain and workforce constraints could hamper the explosive fiber growth others have predicted. And that might be a reason maybe that cable operators might say, you know what, we can't get fiber right now. Well, they're going to have to get fiber anyway. So if they're going to go, again, if they're going to go in a new area, they're going to be doing a lot of fiber out in their mainline plant and doing coax last mile. So I don't know, but maybe it could be equipment or something like that might say, we're just going to stick with DOCSIS here. BEAD funding rules do favor fiber, but new fiber network rollouts will likely be constrained by supply chain issues and shortages of trained labor, Parker explained. Additionally, customer signups for BEAD-funded fiber networks will take a while. That would be for brand new areas, yeah. Plus, it's going to take a while for them to get the money, take a while for them to build it, and then you got to get the subscribers signed up. Many fiber players have been talking up their ability to provide multi-gigabit symmetrical speeds as a key advantage over cable. That's because DOCSIS 4.0 will enable download speeds of 10 gig, but upload speeds of just 6 gig, compared to XGS-PON's 10 gig both ways. A recent study found a significant portion of consumers would pay more for symmetrical tiers, especially when operators stretch such capabilities in their marketing. That's what people say they would do. Whether they really do that, especially with inflation, I don't think so. But by and large, Parker said the use cases just aren't there for most customers to make symmetrical speeds a top priority. And I've said that. It's a marketing checkbox. It gives a fiber operator something to say, that's competitive or a competitive advantage over cable. But if a cable operator can provide 6 by 6 or 4 meg by 4 meg or something like that, that's still very, very fast today. Now, granted, in the future, as we get more applications that are going to require more symmetrical speeds, upload speeds, it'll change a little bit, but it addresses that here. It says symmetrical broadband speeds are becoming more important as demand for faster upload speeds grow, but they're still not a must-have selling point for most residential customers, and that's true. They don't need it. They may want it. They may think they need it based on the marketing, but they really don't need it. Future applications such as immersive AR, VR, and metaverse experiences will demand higher speeds overall than most current applications, but even then it's unlikely that they'll require symmetrical speeds as downloaded content will continue to dominate the landscape, and that's going to be the case. So, I think this metaverse stuff is going to be where maybe the uploads are going to have to get closer and closer to the downloads, but in general, people aren't going to be doing that all day long. They're going to be downloading movies or watching movies, streaming movies, and a lot of it's going to be coming to them. Global Data's forecast is the latest to try to sketch out cable's future as buzz about fiber and fixed wireless grows louder. A recent report from Kagan tipped cable companies to carry 61.9% of U.S. residential broadband by 2026, though it was not immediately clear if this was referencing the companies themselves, cable companies, or the technology used. So it could be lumping cable into a group, and it's including both their DOCSIS and fiber expansion as that 61.9% share. Earlier this month, Point Topic forecast the number of U.S. broadband subscribers using DOCSIS technology would fall from 80 million at the end of 2021 to just 40 million by 2030, as fiber assumes a dominant position. And we fully expect that over that many years, cable operators are going to have their market share in DOCSIS. They're going to eventually start overbuilding one territory at a time once they've expanded as far as they can. They're going to start overbuilding one territory at a time with fiber, which means basically, again, they're going to be fiber most of the way anyway. That means just basically ripping out and replacing their last mile technology. And in January, Fiber Broadband Association CEO Gary Bolton told Fierce Fiber's U.S. market share is expected to rise drastically from around 20% currently to become the only market share player over the coming years. That's going to be many, many coming years because, again, even by 2030, they're still expecting 40 million DOCSIS customers, and that's just because of the costs related to these cable operators ripping stuff out and replacing it, and the kind of speeds that they can offer, especially these major MSOs that are going to be able to do multi-megabits per second up and down. That's going to be sufficient if there's no fiber competitor there. Now, if a fiber competitor wants to come in, if you've got Comcast there and then AT&T's there, and AT&T's offering 10 gig symmetrical, and Comcast can't do that, and they're comparable on price and whatever, people are going to start making the choice. But it's really going to depend. A lot of it's on the competitive part of the market. And if there's not a fiber operator there, but there's already a DOCSIS provider that's providing a very high-speed service, it's not symmetrical, but it's multi-megabit per second up and down, then there's not really a good driving force for that fiber operator to come in because they're they can say they have symmetrical service, but is that enough for them to get enough customers for it to make sense for them to go in and then overbuild in that territory where there's already that competitor, I should say, build out their own network in that territory. So I thought this was pretty interesting. It kind of confirms a lot of what I was thinking, which is, and it confirms another report that I did a broadcast about a month or so ago from, I think it was ATX, that talked about kind of the long term for DOCSIS operators. So most of them are looking at staying, where they are. They're looking at staying on what they are at for the next 10 to 20 years as they try to upgrade that plant so that they can increase the speeds and increase the reliability, and that any new deployments are going to tend to be fiber to the home. So they're just got to squeeze out as much performance as they can on the cable plants that they've got now. But obviously, new money that's coming in, that's being applied to these unserved and underserved areas, that is going to almost be completely fiber, unless, and there'll be some fixed wireless as well, unless there's some reason that fiber is just not feasible or practicable at that time. And then it mentioned the big rise in fixed wireless. That's because that is an easy coverage area. T-Mobile or AT&T or who else? Sprint. I guess Sprint, T-Mobile together. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T. Those guys, once they get their towers up, they can cover vast swaths of area with 5G. They've got mid-band spectrum, and as long as they have enough spectrum, they can provide fairly fast speeds in these areas that could have a fiber competitor in there, could have a cable competitor in there, and they just are another option for people, and they're right now being very aggressive in providing fairly low-cost plans, like $50 a month for broadband, and no usage limits. They're coming in and trying to get market share now. They're right here in my area. I could get service from AT&T, which is what I have, or I can get it from Comcast, or I could get it from T-Mobile, or I could get their 5G service. So I have three options right now. So thanks for joining me. If this was interesting or helpful, give me a like on the video if you would. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button and click the little bell to be notified when I'm live. Thanks a lot, and I will see you next time for Broadband Deployment News. Take care.